How are you?
What's up? Thank you for that amazing introduction.
Sadly, we don't have any time left for the interview, but
We're done,
yeah,
just like
it
that.
was lovely to meet you. Take care of yourself.
Thank
Now,
you. See you
if I'm
later.
not mistaken, and I don't mean to be getting too personal on you here, but if I'm not mistaken, so I think congratulations are in order for you.
Yeah, yeah. If we announced we're having our fourth daughter, we announced it on stage last week, actually in Texas, and Lauren and I knew that we were pregnant a couple of months ago. And I am not one of those people that can keep a secret very well. And so it was only a matter of time before that information kind of just bursted out of me. So pretty wild,
How
pretty wild.
how are you feeling?
Actually, really good, man. I thought three was going to be insane, and it was, and it still is. But a lot of parents we've talked to that said that like going from three to four is really just kind of remotely adding to the chaos a little bit. So, and I have thoroughly enjoyed being a girl dad. So I'm pumped to have a fourth daughter and get to do it all over again.
Hold on, all girls, four daughters.
Four girls. Yeah.
Wow, what are the odds?
I don't know. The odds are very slim, I would imagine. Very slim.
Do you feel changed as a songwriter, as an artist, by your daughters?
Yeah, for sure. I would say my kids are a lot of inspiration behind a lot of writing processes. Probably a reason that like I write so many kind of heartfelt songs because they kind of melt my heart on a daily basis, you know? But my kids, just watching them live life and like watching my wife be such a great mother to them, has definitely inspired just a lot of unique ideas, especially on this album too. So I would say they're a big part of the writing process.
How is that different than before?
Well, I mean, I think before we had kids, it was just me and Lauren, and obviously there was on my past records, there was like a ton of like love songs and, songs strictly just about my wife. But now it's kind of, I mean, I still write love songs about my wife, but there's three other people in the mix, and getting just to watch my wife be such an incredible mom, I think, it's kind of hard not to write about my kids now because they're such a huge part of my daily life. You know what I mean? Like I can't really even write a song down in my basement without one of them coming down and like beating on the piano or asking like who I'm talking to on the computer. So they just kind of inserted themselves into every, living being of my life and my wife's life. And so I would say that would be the biggest difference. Is just before it was just my wife and I, and now it's, the five of us, and now about to be the six of us. So
Crazy. And what's that song on the record? Is it to the guys who date my girls? Is that what it's called?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I was riding around in Nashville with a buddy of mine from South Carolina, and he's got a daughter who's like 15, and obviously I've got three, and we kind of just were having this conversation about what that conversation is going to look like one day when some kid walks over to my house and like asks, to take my kid out on a date. And just kind of like the juxtaposition of like, what kind of dad are you going to be? Are you
Yeah.
going to be like the tough dad? Are you going to invite him in and like ask him about his life? You're going to call his parents and ask him if he's a good kid, like all this stuff. So kind of just like a rough draft letter, I think, of like what I think I might say when that day comes,
I think I got lucky. I always had good girlfriend dads. You
Yeah, me
know,
too.
you
Me
know.
too.
I listen to a lot of country music, and there's a lot of those songs about like, you better not come over when my dad's home, or he's
Yeah.
gonna beat you up. And I never had that. Everyone was always very nice to me.
I really didn't either, man. But I also, grew up, like my parents were like super, super keen on, anytime I picked a girl up, like I feel like in some cases today, there are kids that will pull up to somebody's house and just honk the horn in the driveway.
Ooh.
If some kid pulls up to my house and honks his horn, the date is off. It's just not happening. Um, but you're right, man. Every girl that I dated, like me and their dads were very, very good friends, and I think that made it a lot easier. And they also, just asked me about my life, and I think wanted to just know who I was as a human. And so I would imagine that would be the kind of dad that I'm gonna be. So
But what's it like? I mean, I should point out that your dad is a legendary country musician, Rhett Aikens.
yeah.
What's it like? Not even having that conversation with them specifically. I guess just kind of what's it like growing up with people knowing about your family without having to tell them.
You mean as far as like my dad being a country singer?
Yeah, like people don't know who my dad. Well, my dad's passed now, but like people didn't know who my dad was. I didn't go through life like that. What's that like?
It's funny, man, because in the beginning of my career, when I signed a publishing deal when I was 19, I feel like there was a lot of that. Well, he probably just got a publishing deal because his dad
Yeah.
helped him do that. You know what I'm saying? There was a lot of comments early on, like, he's riding his dad's coattails, he's doing this, he's doing that, and like in many ways, um, I'm not saying that it's not true, but I mean, my dad was a huge reason that I was able to get into the room with certain people. I mean, my first co-write was with him and Dallas Davidson and Bobby Pinson. Two guys that had just won like BMI Songwriter of the Year before. There's no reason that I should have been in that room except the fact that my dad was a songwriter. But very early on, it kind of bugged me. So I remember telling my dad, like, hey, I think I'm just going to go write with a lot of other people that are in my position where we're brand new songwriters. We've never had any cuts on anybody. And I feel like I just need to go figure out my own writing style. And my dad was so supportive of that and something that he highly encouraged. And so for those first couple of years, I mean, I was writing with a bunch of brand new songwriters who had never had any success in Nashville. And me and two guys wrote this song for Jason Aldean when I was 20 years old, and it became our very first cut in the music business. And it kind of got all of our names on the map. And then moving forward, I started to get cut after cut after cut. And then when I signed my record deal at 21, I was like, okay, I think that I've lived enough life and written enough songs to be able to kind of get back in there with my dad and kind of take my writing style and pair it with his. And ever since then, man, we've had a lot of really cool success together, but I'm not sure that I really needed those couple years of just kind of detaching myself from my dad and his friends to just kind of making my own name for myself in Nashville. And it was one of the best things that I could have ever done for my career.
But you would have been forgiven to do if you had you chosen a completely different career. I mean, like, I think
Oh yeah.
I was curious the other day, and I was looking up Townes Van Zant's kids. I know it's maybe a bit, the creepy Google search you can do. Like, I did one of those.
Sure.
Like, what's Townes Van Zant's kids up to? They don't have a public life, but I Googled it, and one of them is a guide a fishing guide in Texas.
Oh, cool.
And I thought, man, that's a good world for you.
It's a good life. Yeah.
And also because your dad's one of the greatest songwriters. And, if your dad's Townes Van Zandt, maybe a good idea not to be a songwriter.
Right. Yeah.
But it's interesting to me that you chose this path when you did have it sort of stacked against you.
Yeah. I mean, for my whole life, I knew that I loved music just because my dad did. And from a very early age, my dad was letting me hear all types of music. Like, it never really was just country music. I mean, that was kind of like my first love growing up in the 90s. I thought 90s country, still do, was like the best era of country music. And my dad was like super good about playing us, the Beatles and Aretha Franklin and, James Brown and the Rolling Stones was my first concert that I ever saw. I saw the Allman Brothers 5 times before I was 15. And so I was like very cultured as far as like all different types of music. And I knew that I loved it, but there was also that point of me as like, at like a 15-year-old kid that I was like, I'm not going to do this for a living. I'm going to go, I want to sell real estate, or I want to, sell insurance or something like that. And as I got older and getting into school, I was like, man, I do not like school at all. I really love the social aspect, but I don't know what I'm learning here. And it was at that point where I was like, maybe I don't know, maybe I could write songs for a living. I had no desire to be an artist, period. I just wanted to write songs just like my dad did. And hopefully I could be successful at it. And as I started to get cuts on the radio of other artists, it kind of stirred up this bug in me that I was like, what would it feel like to write a song and also have myself singing it on the radio? And that's really what kind of spurred me to want to go try to search out, getting a record deal and doing the artist thing. I kind of had a backstage pass at it. I mean, I went on the road with my dad all the time. I loved getting on the bus. I loved tour life. I loved sound check. I loved all the things about being on the road. And once I started doing it, it kind of became this thing that I felt like I had been born to do it. All those years of wondering if I was ever going to do it, it was just like, I was doing it. I mean, I was the guy at every high school party that was like, hey, you should play the guitar. Hey, you should play 3 a.m. again by Third Eye Blind. Like, you should, all these cover songs I was learning. And so from a young age, I always knew that I loved to entertain a crowd, and just kind of kept pushing off the fact that that's what I might do for the rest of my life. And, now here we are 10 years in, and I really couldn't imagine myself doing anything different.
I didn't expect Third Eye Blind in there.
Dude, they were like one of my favorite bands ever.
Really?
Their first album, you can't deny. I mean, it just hit after hit after hit after hit.
I think I only know I think I only know the hits, but I tell you, I heard. And of course, everyone knows "Semi Charm Life." I tell you what, I listened to the other day. That big hit they had after that, which was the I don't know the name of it. The "I'll
Jumper,
never let you go, I'll never
Never
turn
Let You Go.
around your back
Yeah,
on." That's jam.
jam,
That's like.
jam.
Did you ever meet those guys?
No, they came to Nashville 2 years ago, and it happened to be on a night where I had to play a show in a different city, and so I've still never seen them live. But it's like still kind of a bucket list thing for me to do. So if they're ever around me in any town, I'm gonna have to go.
I'm almost done talking about your father, and but I'm
Yeah.
not. I want to ask one more thing on it. Is
Okay.
that a good friend of mine is a songwriter in Nashville,
Yeah.
and I said to him one time, I said, "So tell me what these sessions can be like." He said, "Man, sometimes you just go out and have a bite to eat." And I said, "What do
Yeah.
you mean?" He said, "Sometimes you sit down. People don't know this, but you sit down and you have a bite to eat." And then that's your songwriting session. And I said,
Yeah.
"How in the name of God is that your songwriting session?" And he said, "Because you'd start talking and you
Yeah.
start getting comfortable and you start revealing to one another things you probably wouldn't tell anybody else."
Yeah.
Now, when you're writing a song with your father, we all have things we don't feel comfortable saying to our parents. How
Yeah.
do you get over that?
Well, I will agree with your buddy, man. I mean, the first couple of years of my writing life, if we didn't have an idea by noon, we were going to Substop in Nashville, and then we called it a day. I mean, there are definitely those times that you get in there and you're like, we've thrown around 5 or 6 ideas, nothing's really sticking. Let's just go eat lunch. And a lot of the time you go eat lunch and then somebody says something, you're like, okay, let's write that. And then you finish lunch and you come back and you write a song. So it does take a comfort level for sure. And I will say, like early on, it was kind of weird writing love songs with my dad. You know what I'm saying? It's just kind of like, do you want to hear what I have to say about my wife? And it was kind of awkward. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
But as we kept going, and I feel like as dad started to get vulnerable with me and I started to get vulnerable with him, that's when some of our best writing sessions happened. I remember we wrote Life Changes together. It was very funny because I was like, well, I'm writing this with my dad. Is that going to make any sense? But what I realized is that I'm writing about what I see about my life, but he's also writing from a dad's standpoint of going, yeah, I see that, but I also see it this way from an outsider's perspective looking in. So it's kind of unique to have my brain set going in a session while my dad's going, well, this is how I've seen you your whole life. So maybe we could kind of sprinkle some of that in there. So I think when me and dad started to get really honest with each other in the writing room, I feel like we wrote some of the coolest songs we've ever been a part of,
Yeah, it feels
So
like that
in,
should
in
be
that capacity, it was cool.
it should be good psychology. Like, hey,
Yeah.
hey, is your therapy not working? Go write a song with your dad.
Yeah, exactly. And me and dad have gone to therapy before. But I think we do get to hash out like a lot of stuff in the writing room. And I think it's made our relationship tighter than it could have ever been.
I love talking about this stuff. And now I want to talk about another song on the record. And maybe, you know what, to be candid, we are going to change tone a little bit. So just take a listen to this.
They still ain't paved that road on Lower Licton Pike. I still look for your truck sometimes, a Sonic on Friday night. They still punch the dashboard hurts every time I hear Eric Church sing Sinners Like Me. I crank it up real loud. I wonder what you're doing in heaven right now.
You're just tuning in.
Are you fishing?
My guest is Thomas Rhett. That's the song Heaven Right Now. I found that song hard to listen to a little bit, just given the year of loss that it's been because of COVID-19. And then I read the story of the song, and I thought if you were okay with it, I might get you to tell it.
Yeah. Probably the hardest song I've ever written for sure. Basically, in a nutshell, my wife and one of my good buddies that travels with me on the road, Cameron, grew up with this kid named Hunter. Basically, like more like brothers than they were friends. They all grew up in the same neighborhood, and just one of the most amazing humans. Like one of those people that I can like still vividly see his smile, and also vividly remember when he walked into a room, it just felt like everything just got lighter. You know what I'm saying? Really funny kid, really just an awesome human to be around. And I obviously did not know him as long as my wife and my friend Cameron did, but I got to meet him around maybe 13 or 14 years old when I started hanging out with my wife a lot. And he passed away 9 years ago. And ever since then, we wear these bracelets that have his initials on them. And we were writing this song. I was actually writing a song with my dad, and it wasn't about him initially. It was more just about loss in general. And as we started writing it, I felt like it was always going in that direction, because I'd never written a song about those emotions of just loss, much less somebody that I knew, and we could have written it a million different ways, but I decided to write it from my perspective of just this concept of like, every time I look down at my wrist, I'm reminded of his face, or every time I go to that neighborhood, I'm just reminded of like times that we would spend hanging out together. And just this whole concept of like, life is kind of moving on per normal down here. There are some things that have changed. Yes. But just like wondering how much sicker of a day he's having, in heaven. Like he loved to fish. And that's like a lot of that chorus is about, are you fishing? Are you flying? What do you look the same? Like, are you still a young hunter? Have you aged at all? Like, have you met Johnny Cash? Like, have you met these people that are floating around up there? And so to this day, like probably one of the toughest songs that I've been a part of writing. But one that I felt like, if you have ever lost someone close to you, I think in my brain, it's just one of those, like, it's not goodbye. It's just like, I'll see you later. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's kind of how the song wraps up. It's like, can't wait for when my time comes around, I can't wait to catch up, and so, definitely one of the most personal songs I've ever written about anyone that I've lost, or my friends have lost, or my wife has lost. And but a song that I do feel like could maybe help someone through a time of just severe sorrow,
Yeah.
And one of those songs that it's like, do you ever play that song in concert? I don't really know, but I knew that it really needed to be on there, for my sake, for people that knew him really well. I thought it was a great tribute just to make sure that his memory would always be here.
There's a great old gospel song that I know I think it's called "What Are They Doing in Heaven Today?"
Yeah.
You know that one? What are they doing in heaven today when fear and sorrow have all gone away? Peace is flowing like a river, they say, but what are they doing right now? And I love the perspective on that, to show not just loss, but to think fondly on the person, even now, not just who they were, but who they could be right now,
Yeah.
It's a powerful song. And are you going to play it live?
Haven't decided yet.
Why not?
I don't know. It's kind of like one of those songs that's like, what do you do after that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't really sing it. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. It's like, especially, when you're kind of playing to, a crowd that's, partying and holding beers up in the air. It's like, do you put that in the middle of the set? Do you end with it? It's just, I don't know. It may just be one of those songs that lives on an album, that hopefully a lot of people can hear that needed to hear it. So here in Canada, we're
how do I put this? We can't think about concerts yet in the way that the United States can.
Yeah.
And you are playing, is it tonight?
Yeah, tonight.
I feel like I'm talking to the future. How is it?
It's unbelievable. I mean, it's like we got to play 3 shows. We're playing 5 nights at the same place. So we did 3 nights last weekend and 2 nights this weekend. And I remember getting up there on Thursday night, and I looked at my wife and I was like, I haven't been this nervous since the very first time I played the Grand Ole Opry. And it was during sound check that day when someone looked at me and said, hey, it's been 572 days since the last time we have done this for real. And when you start to think about like that kind of math, pretty weird, man, because it hasn't been more than maybe 30 days in my whole career since I've played a concert. It's like you finish a tour, you get January, February off, and you go straight back into the grind of it.
Yeah, and you're doing shows, you're doing charity shows in there, and you're doing corporate
award shows, kind of this and that. But like, I mean, for a year and a half of just straight virtual concert, or going in to do an award show where it's just you and cameras and there's no real fans, like to doing this last Thursday night was one of the most terrifying / incredible moments ever, because I knew that like I was nervous because I haven't done this in a while. But then you look at the fans and you're like, I wonder what they think. You know what I'm saying? It's like they haven't done this in a very long time either. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, Do we remember how to clap? Do we remember how to scream? Do we remember how to like yell out for an encore? You know, like all the stuff that I forgot, probably they forgot too. But it was amazing how it kind of just felt like the first night was training wheels. And then Friday and Saturday, it was just like, I remember how to do this.
How's the crowd? Is the crowd like a hungry dog who gets to see meat? You know what I mean? Like,
dude, I mean, it really is. I mean, you know, we also haven't played a club in a long time. You know, this is kind of the first time that we haven't been in an arena or an amphitheater. And so it was a lot of like kind of unlearning for us because we always have such large stages and big lights and fire and all this kind of stuff going to all of a sudden it's like super stripped, couple of lights, a band, you know, it's like rock and roll all over again, you know? And so, but it was amazing because we put these shows on sale and it was just like all 5 nights of them just kind of went really fast. And like, I just haven't seen that kind of like demand before. Like, I mean, a lot of our shows sell out, but a lot of the shows don't sell out until, you know, the day of the show or the week of the show, because it's like, oh, well, I know I can get tickets. But it's like nowadays, it's like a show goes on sale. It's like buying a house in Nashville. If it goes on the market, you better go see it right now or else it's going to be sold to somebody else. So it's just, I've just never experienced this kind of like hunger from the artist and also hunger from the fans at the same time. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. I'm never watching Netflix ever again. Like I'm going to see stuff I don't even care about. Like, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been the crazy part is like, I mean, I've seen tickets go on sale for artists I don't know. I'm like, maybe I should buy a ticket. Never heard their music before, but I'm going to go so that I can just like be around certain humans and be able to hear somebody play a guitar straight to my face rather than through an Instagram live, you know?
Are you nervous at all? I mean, you're going to start doing arenas soon. That's a lot of people. Are you nervous at all or?
Honestly, I was more nervous for this than I think I will be to get back in front of so many people because that's just what we've been doing for the last 5 years. You know, the first 5 years of my career was mastering the club art of entertainment. And then you spend the next 2 years of your arena life going, well, I knew how to entertain 2,000 people. How do I entertain 15,000, you know? And so it's just funny, man. This year is just a big learning curve, I think, for everybody of just going, you know, nobody really has the budget this year to get back and do all the lights they had before. Nobody can really afford fire or cryo. So it's like, how do we take this kind of club arrangement and make it work in a giant setting? But I think it's a really fun challenge to conquer, you know, especially with the band and, you know, just getting back out there, trying to remember what it's like to entertain that many people. So
I'm excited for it. And I'll say this before we go, that throughout this pandemic, I grew up listening to country music. And then I spent my years, my kind of 20s in playing bluegrass music. And I kind of came back deeply to country music during the pandemic. Because of, I think, not just the hope, but also the kind of escape I was able to get from it and the joy I was able to feel in some of the darkest days. So to all of you, I wanted to say thanks. And
man, I received that. Thank you so much for saying that.
Nice to talk to you.
Likewise, man.
I'm speaking with country star Thomas Rhett. His new album, Country Again, Side A, is out now.